Here was the 2021 schedule for Mississippi State. You see, they went 7-5 in the regular season, a very successful season. Losses coming to Memphis, LSU, Alabama, Arkansas, and Ole Miss. And of course, that Memphis game, a controversial call late in that game. Really, Mississippi State probably should have won that one. So it could have been an 8-4 season. But when you look at the schedule, they played Louisiana Tech, and they played NC State, they played Memphis, and then also Tennessee State in the non-conference. So, an interesting non-conference schedule there with both NC State and Memphis, and that was a big win over NC State, by the way. They finished really strong. They played Vanderbilt and Kentucky out of the East, so they avoided Georgia and, I guess maybe Kentucky was not a great draw, but they play Kentucky every year, of course. But getting Vanderbilt as that other team was really nice. And then Alabama at home, but they were not able to win that game. They go on the road to beat Texas A&M, on the road to beat Auburn. So a really good year despite a pretty tough schedule, but again, drawing Vanderbilt made it not too bad in the SEC. Here is the schedule for 2022. Before we go game by game, let's look at who they play outside of the SEC West, because of course they're going to play every SEC West team. They will play Memphis, they will play Arizona on the road, Bowling Green, and ETSU. That'll be their non-conference schedule. Very similar to last year. They're going to play Memphis again, and then also playing a Power 5 team in Arizona. Arizona not as good as NC State, so that's a little bit of an easier draw there, although they do have to go out west to Arizona. So that'll be an interesting game there. But the games against the East, that's where it gets tougher, because they'll have to play Kentucky this time on the road. Kentucky's going to be pretty good. Playing them on the road will be tough, and then they'll have to play Georgia, the one team you want to avoid out of the SEC East. And it seems like Mississippi State and Georgia have played a lot recently. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just my imagination. It seems like they've been playing more than some of these other cross-division games. But anyways, very tough draw out of the East. A non-conference schedule that's not the easiest in the country, but it's not brutal. I mean, they can absolutely win all four of those non-conference games. So they'll start off with Memphis on September the 3rd. That'll be a home game. Then they go on the road to face Arizona. So two pretty tough, I mean, I wouldn't say tough, but quality opponents that they'll play to start off the season here in the non-conference with Memphis and Arizona. Then they'll jump right into SEC play on the road at LSU. So they don't get that cupcake game, that easy win early in the season. That's going to be a pretty tough stretch for starting off the year, Memphis, Arizona, and LSU. Then they'll get an easier game against Bowling Green on September 24th. Then they go into the month of October with a game against Texas A&M at home, and then another home game against Arkansas. And then it's back-to-back road games. So they'll play 2 home games in a row and then 2 road games in a row, Kentucky and Alabama. That's a pretty tough month of October. Texas A&M and Arkansas, 2 top 10, top 15 teams probably. Kentucky probably a top 15 team, at least top 25. They play them on the road. And then, of course, Alabama, the team that's going to be favored to win the SEC this year, they play them on the road as well. So a brutal month of October. And it's interesting how some of the schedule, it's kind of in pairs. So they play Arizona and LSU, 2 road games paired together. Then Texas A&M and Arkansas, 2 home games paired together. Then Kentucky and Alabama, both on the road. Auburn, Georgia, both at home. Interesting how that kind of works out here on the schedule. But we do go into that month of November with a home game against Auburn. A winnable game, especially playing at home. They beat them last year on the road. Auburn, it's kind of hard to say right now how good that team is going to be. But then Georgia after that, very tough game. If this does turn out to be a magical year for them, at least they get Georgia late in the year and they could potentially get a huge win. But I just don't know if this team can survive that month of October. Even if they were able to start off 4-0, you get into that month of October, Texas A&M, Arkansas, Kentucky, Alabama. That is just brutal. They do get ETSU after Georgia, and then they'll close things out with Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl. They'll play that game on the road this year. That should be a good one, like it always is pretty much. So a pretty tough schedule for Mississippi State. A non-conference schedule that's very respectable. It's not brutal, but it's respectable. And then you have to play maybe the top 2 teams out of the SEC East in a very tough month of October. So, and if you take ETSU out of the month of November is really tough as well. Auburn, Georgia, Ole Miss. So there's really no easy parts of this schedule. You don't have 2 weeks in a row where you're going to have games that Mississippi State will be, not against cupcakes, but even against just teams that they should beat or teams that they'll be favored against, besides maybe those first 2 games with Memphis and Arizona. So a really tough schedule here for Mississippi State. in 2022.